Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today we are enter. I'm not sure if it's really entering because we've done Ruby, which is kind of like this, but this is we are talking about a web series this time, and you probably heard about it because it's pretty popular. Helluva Boss. Love the name.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta say, if I gotta give credit for one thing, I love that name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I should stress probably that I know it's a spin-off of something else. Like I can pronounce that something hotel.
Oh, it's
I
from what I understand, it's not a spin-off. It's just its own thing, just set in like the same
it's the
world,
same
sort of deal.
role. I'm calling it a spin-off because same creator, same world, but there's no
Ah, okay.
connection.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, the Has Been Hotel is what it is.
Yeah. So for the record, I haven't seen that. I know of it. I know it's very similar styles. I know it's the same person behind both, but haven't seen Husband Hotel. I have seen Hell of a Bus quite recently. Like I only started watching this not too long ago, thanks to a friend. And for the record, people, this is only about season one. We'll talk about season two once it finishes airing. So
It'll
only
be a
season
while.
one spoilers. Hmm?
It'll be a while for season two, I'm
It'll,
sure.
it'll be a while, but what can you do? Good things
Mm-hmm.
take time. So,
True. True.
so before we get into spoilers, kind of a non spoiler discussion. Wolf, what do you think about Hell of a Boss season one?
So, this one's a bit of an odd one for me because Has Been Hotel came out first, the pilot for that. I watched that and instantly fell in love. Loved everything about it personally, like the style, the animation, the premise, just everything about it. It's like this is cool. I like this. I want to know where this is going. And not long after that, I think Helluva Boss came out with its pilot, and I kind of fell off that one hard, pilot wise. Like nothing about it really captured me. It really didn't it didn't grip me in the same way that Has Been Hotel did, right? Like Has Been Hotel, I really got into its humor and the animation, and like I said, like everything about it. Hell of a Boss, the humor didn't sit it didn't gel with me. The animation was still fine and everything, nothing wrong with that. It's just the characters, the humor, and some other things about it. Just it didn't grab me, right? So for the most part, I kind of just forgot about it. I figured, well, maybe eventually they'll do more with Has Been Hotel, and I'll get more for that. But just forgot about Hell of a Boss, and so I came back into it because, like many people, I too have fallen down the rabbit hole of TikTok and YouTube short videos and all of that nonsense.
You eventually watch one of those. It's just
Yes, I
impossible
eventually
to
found the almighty algorithm decided you need Hell of a Boss clips, and I started watching those clips because, this looks interesting. What is this? Some of these clips are really good. There's way more. There's a lot of character here. What is this? And oh, this is Hell of a Boss. Huh? Maybe I need to watch that. And I did watch it, and I really enjoyed it more than what I thought I would based off of the pilot.
hmm Well, so I guess I'm kind of in the same way that, for the record, I think for season one only, right? Because I will say that from where season two is at this point in time, which is about halfway through ish, I think season two is a massive improvement over season one, which I'm saying because I understand that there's a big fan base to this, and I do agree the show gets better. And while season one isn't that big of a hurdle to jump over, like it's perfectly fine, it's funny, it's well animated, it has some great ideas, and I appreciate a lot about it that we'll get to. Gotta say, it's kind of forgettable when it's all said and done. Like and I feel sorry to say this because you can tell a lot of love was put into this, and I'm not sure if it's intentionally or not, but it's kind of just one of those things where it's kind of like junk food. Like
I would.
you
Oh, go
you
ahead.
eat it, you see it, you feel good, but I'm not sure how much of it is gonna stick with you because I've rewatched the entirety of season one before this. I've seen the season maybe like a month or two ago, and I was surprised by just how much I don't really remember.
I would say for me,
Mhm.
barring a few moments within like the first, I'm gonna say 4 episodes, there's not a lot there that like that I fell in love with. Right? There's like episode 2, the like,
Yeah,
well, not gonna get into spoilers, but like episode 2 has a moment that I really loved, that really
I
enjoyed,
think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
and like that's one of those things that like that's I feel like that's one of those few things that'll stick with you no matter what, right? And some of the other first 4 episodes have a little bit of that, but I feel season 1 really starts to get into its own, and really starts to show, okay, there's something here. This can get really good. Is the last 3 episodes, episode 5, 6, and 7, and then, but I do agree with you. Season 2, I feel every episode that I've watched thus far, the most recent one being episode 4 of season 2, has been
No, I think
exceptional.
five. I think didn't five came out?
No,
Oh,
4's the most recent one, as far as I can tell.
four
Yeah,
is
four
okay.
came out in just last month, May 20th, so
Yeah,
about 2 weeks ago
yeah,
or
not
so.
not that long ago.
So yeah, like I definitely agree with you. Season 2 has, in my opinion, really picked up the bar, and there's a lot more going on,
And
especially
I
character and
tell you
story
what,
wise, and it's more
and I'll tell you
interesting.
what, because this is not to, God forbid, discredit the people working on this, right?
Mm,
But I think kind of like because this is a web series, as far as I'm aware, it's one of those, like, it's not really a show that's like under a certain network
no,
or a funder. This is an independently made show,
which
from
is
what I know.
really kind of refreshing in its own right, right?
Yeah,
Because how often do we get to see that anymore? Like
yeah,
the idea of
and
the web series has kind of come and gone, and it's nice
yeah,
just to get to see a
because
web series that doesn't have a big name backing it, right? Like there's big names attached to the project, sure, but
yeah, because and I just want to say though that, for the record, all my heart goes to the animators, the writers, the people behind this show, for making this. And essentially, again, as far as I'm aware, this has no funding from like a bigger studio, right? It's kind of like when Ruby first started, right? They didn't have Warner Brothers when Ruby started, right?
no, like I mean,
So,
they had Rooster Teeth, and Rooster Teeth was at that point in time quite a big name itself, but they didn't have like,
but at the same time, it's not like they had necessarily funding. There was no wallet to give you a budget to make this.
yeah, there was nothing to lean on, right? Like you had
Yeah.
just you and what Rooster Teeth could do themselves, right? And that was pretty much it. Yeah, no, I agree with that. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and so in a sense, it's I really appreciate that Helluva even it's very ambitious, and it's doing wonderful things with what it has. It looks great. It sounds great. But I just want to preface that if people are going to use it's it's independently funded, ergo you need to cut it some slack. While I appreciate all the talent that goes into it and all the effort, this doesn't change any of that. But I just want to say, considering that Helluva Boss has some well-known voice actors in it, and there is, so obviously they are affordable, and it is being treated like a show that's produced by a studio, and the fact that web shows are also just becoming another form of entertainment. Not just Rooster Teeth now being under Warner Brothers, but with Netflix and Amazon Prime and all that stuff. I just think, like, if I'm going to criticize something like Ruby, for example, as a show that's airing, if I'm going to approach Ruby as a show that's on par with what else is on TV and streaming services, I'm gonna do the same to Hell of a Boss, because that's how it presents itself. And for the record, it's a compliment that I'm
Mhm.
comparing it to that. It's not just to say, well, you want to play with the big boys, I'm going to judge you like the big boys. No, 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 no. I'm happy that they are treating this as if they are part of the big boys. That shows ambition. And people who know me know one thing: I always appreciate ambition, even if the results aren't the best.
Agreed.
So that, and like I said, season two does get a lot better, but we're not talking about season two as of now. We're focusing on the first season. And that's important to remember because some first seasons don't start the best and the shows only pick up later. So I want to make sure we're clear on that, listeners, that if we are criticizing something, it's not to say that the show is bad. It's just that we see the potential, we see where it can work, we think it works, but we are gonna bring this up if something doesn't work, because you can also tell that the writers are learning as the show goes along, and that's wonderful.
As always, send all of your hate mail to @HC.
Says the guy who called people who idiots for not agreeing with him.
I mean, they are, but people are allowed to be wrong. It's they just need to be told they're wrong. It's okay.
Send all the hate mails to that guy. Anyway, so honestly, if you listen to this, you probably seen season one, but there's spoilers for Helluva Boss season one in 3, 2, 1. So I will say one thing that I absolutely love about the show is the concept, the idea.
It's neat.
That what did you say?
It's neat.
Yeah, the idea that there's just a hitman crew in hell that goes to the living world in order to kill people. The idea is just fantastic. And honestly, the people in, and like any good show like this, be it a sitcom or just a team-based show, the people comprising the team have good chemistry, and the three of them are playing really well off each other. That, of course, two of them are husband and wife, so that helps. But at the same time, I like this. I like a lot of I like Blitz. I like Moxie, Millie, Luna, all of them. They are a fun group to hang out with.
They're all great, but I'll be honest. Watching episode 1, I was like, all right, like. So going from the pilot, right, and then kind of forgetting about it, and then going into episode 1, it's like, all right, I'm getting more into this. These characters have won me over a bit more. The humor's landing with me a bit more this time around. But getting to episode 2 and then seeing Stolas and his relationship with his daughter Octavia, Stolas steals this show. I'm sorry. Stolas steals the show.
Stolas is obviously Stolas is like what I call the fan favorite character because this is the character that's just there to for people to either make fun of or absolutely love. Because what's Stolas's deal? He's freaking horny 24/7.
But then even you get a little bit of that in the first episode, right? But then you get to Lululand and you just hear him desperately trying but unable to explain, hey, being in a relationship, being in an arranged marriage and hating the person I'm with and them hating me, and yet still trying to make that work for my daughter, right? And being unable to explain any of that to her. That scene is just so well done, and the voice acting there, the voice actor for Stolas is just beautiful. Love you.
That's another thing that I feel like they are handling better later on. That
True.
For the record, episode 2 I think is great because it's really energetic. The on-screen, the slapstick comedy, I'm gonna go, is on point. It's great. Alex Brightman is voicing the person performing, which has nothing to do with anything. But I know that the friend who introduced me to the show will kill me if I didn't mention it. And all that is great and stuff, but then you get to this conversation which is really heartfelt between Stolas and his daughter, and it's really heartfelt, really on point. Everything about it works, but it also feels like it's not balanced with the rest of the episode. You get me?
No, that's fair. I can see where you're coming from in that. I don't. It didn't bother me, but I can agree with you in what you're getting at there, right? It feels. It's not juxtaposed well, right? It doesn't they don't connect very well. I get that, and I can feel that.
And for the record, it is a tough line to walk, and I appreciate them for even handling this as well as they did. But it is just considering this is like episode 2, it's also raises the point of what is this show exactly, because the pilot and the first episode are, I think you would agree, are all zany. Like it goes
Yeah,
for
it's very
that.
much like dark comedy, right? And that's pretty much
Yeah,
all it
they
is.
go to this dark comedy, and and also I do appreciate another thing, that this is a show for adults. Clearly, like this is
Mm-hmm.
not for kids by any means. There's gore, there's swearing, there's don't show this to your kids.
Or do.
But some do, and I have questions. But
It'll be
but for the
fine.
record, I do enjoy the fact though that there's an adult cartoon, which it does go for the swears, it goes for the gore, it goes for the sex, it's for the sexual jokes, but it's not like in your face about it. And I like that it's there when they need it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the core. Like, if I think we talked about this when we did Invincible, which is a good show, but I felt like they're like, oh, we are adult animation, so we're gonna throw violence every chance we get, and like
Yeah.
very gory
I
violence.
had that problem with, we've not talked about this show too much, but I had that problem with the first season of The Legend of Vox Machina as well, where
Mhm.
there's just so much gore and violence. And I get it, but at the same time, it's like you can pull it back a bit. I get you're adult and you want to do it, but you can pull back a bit. I don't need that much, right?
Yeah, so I appreciate that there's something like this that knows how to use it and uses it when it needs to, because shows like this would, like, they would say, oh, we say fuck 5,000 times because saying fuck is funny. But, and well, yes, they do this in Helluva Boss too, but they use the curses in like the right spots when it's also what the audience is thinking, probably, and that helps it. On that note, I want to note that Moxie is voiced by. Let me look up the voice actor's name
Richard
just to be.
Horvitz, I believe.
Yeah, Richard Horvitz. To those who don't know, Richard Horvitz is the voice of Zim from Invader Zim, Daggett from the Angry Beavers, and Rasputin from the Psychonauts games, just to name a few. I love this guy. Every role he
He's
does,
great.
I'm into.
Yep.
And so, and it's no different here. Also, I think he's the voice director for this show, which is really cool too. But but then I hear him as Max, and it's like, oh, I know him. That's Invader Zim. That's this guy. And then without any warning, he just goes, oh fuck. Hearing Invader Zim, Daggett slash Daggett slash Rasputin say fuck is the funniest out of context thing for me.
You know,
I know it's a very weird thing to point out, but it's just this one moment where like you realize, whoa. that, just a funny thing I thought to bring up.
bringing up Invader Zim, some of the stylization of this show reminds me of that show as well, too, right? Like in the
Kinda.
animation, like a little bit. Like there's just that feeling, right?
The, maybe in terms of the animation, not in terms of the character design.
No, no, not the design, not at all. But like some of the animation, like it just kind of brings up that
Yeah.
feeling.
Like there's a very similar like coloring schemes, and maybe, and I guess even like a anime, like a comedy style. There is something that's kind of similar. I get you. Invader Zim was a great show, by the way. Watch it if you haven't.
It was, it was. I didn't get as into it, but it was still good.
Like, when I'm saying a great show, I don't mean I was like obsessed
Oh,
with
oh, oh
it.
no, no, fair, fair, absolutely.
Yeah, but when I watched that, I had a really good time with it, and also I really enjoyed that movie that they made 2 years ago to
Mm-hmm.
conclude it. That was
Mm-hmm.
really good. Anyway, back to Helluva Boss. So I love this dynamic between the main cast. I love the idea of just that hell has a group of people that needs to go kill people, and I think episode 1 really sells you in on that.
Yeah.
By the way, that's Matilda voicing the teacher.
Interesting.
Yeah. The stuff that people do when they grow up. But but anyway, so I think this was a really good episode to really sell you on the tone of the show. Then episode two, I love even more. I just think like in terms of balancing the serious stuff and the you know um, I think they didn't necessarily balance the comedy and the serious stuff as well, but
I feel it
still,
got
uh,
better as the season went on, though. I think, like I said, the
yeah.
last, like episode 7, I think like the comedy and the seriousness is balanced extremely well, right? In my opinion,
Yeah. hmm
because
So
like,
episode three, I think, is the went back to the zany, which I like, and episode four, I think, was a really clever commentary. It's
mhm.
like you said, it's that last 3 episodes, maybe two even, that that it starts to feel like, oh, we actually have like an ongoing plot here. There
Yeah,
are that we are going to take into consideration, which I guess fair enough for the end of a season, but also I am still kind of on the fence regarding if this was a smart choice to keep it so late into the season or not, because those episodes were coming out months from each other, right?
yeah. Well, I mean,
Right.
it's also worth remembering, right? Like episode 7 wasn't supposed to be the finale, but I think it was because COVID and just like other delays and other issues, right? It ended up
I
becoming the
am.
finale of season
I
1, from what I
know.
understand.
I know that COVID was a factor in which impacted season two. I'm not sure to the point of season one having to end after episode
Well,
seven,
I
but
mean, like there were just
tell
a
us
bunch
something.
of other factors, going into, yeah, like that would have been a bit before. My apologies, but like there were just some factors going in that episode 7 ended up being like the finale, even though it wasn't supposed to be for season 1, right?
Yeah,
From what I
That-
understand. So
yeah.
that
I get.
maybe could have changed things, and it's definitely interesting. But this is one of the potential issues you do have when it comes to web series, and when you especially don't have a distributor or network or publisher
Yeah,
to rely on, right?
because I also think like it's like once an episode is done, they're releasing it. There's no set schedule for this. And again, I'm not here to say that to mock to God forbid criticize the idea that that it doesn't have a set schedule or something like that. But I also think that how much do you expect people to remember between episodes? Because I'll be honest with you, one of my problems with the show is that maybe it's a meeting, but that some episodes just came through one ear and went out the other. And when you're trying to keep people coming back every time an episode comes out, that's a problem. And I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just a maybe it's just me here, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure it was necessarily a good idea to introduce this quote unquote late into the game.
I I it I agree and also disagree. Like I said, there are things with some episodes, like episode 2, that stick with me more. Um, like episode 3, right? Something that sticks with me, and I think sticks with a lot of people, right? Is Luna and Blitz, and kind of like finding out a little bit more about how Luna was apparently adopted by Blitz, right? And I think
Yes.
that's one of those moments where it combines the zany and the seriousness a little bit better as well, and you can see them starting to get better with it, where they have that quick argument, right, between her
Yeah.
and Blitz.
hmm
And
And
go
the
ahead.
thing is that I just feel, at least for season one, that the show does comedy and episode by episode narratives better than character development. Because some of the like you said, you have this the great moment in episode three where between Blitz and Luna, and in general, Luna is just a great character, but it feels like we put it there, but it's not impacting anything in the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, it's I feel it's set up so like, hey, here's a bit more about these characters, and then you get more of it in season two, and you learn more of why these characters are more like this in season two, right? I think some of it is set up for later development, right? Some of these like
Yeah,
with
like there is like a character that's only in one episode this season, and so far it appeared more in season two,
mm.
so it's possible.
So I think the idea is set up, but I get where you're coming from in so much as yeah, it's not great with it. I still think that season one got better with it as it went on, and I think the last two
Mhm.
episodes especially, show that off, right? In so much, in looking at especially Stolas and Blitz's relationship and their development.
And I'll tell you what, I think some of it, at least to me, right? Some of it does feel like the show can also suffer from the fact there's no, for lack of a better term, corporate eye guiding it. Because if you notice, episode lengths can change. Like one episode is like 12 minutes, then another one would be 18, another one would be 22, and the other one would be 15. Just to give an example. And again, I like that the show creators can just kind of make an episode as long as they want, right? But I feel like when you don't have someone necessarily overseeing you, when you don't have that eye that says this needs to be that, this needs to be that, you end up with some scenes that you could have cut or better, and they wouldn't really change it. Like there's the episode where they go to this competition and meet Millie's parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that if as I'm watching this, I, at least maybe 5 to 6 minutes of dialogue could have been cut. Not that it's necessarily not funny or that it's not cool that it's there, but it felt like the plot of the episode didn't really start until halfway through, and that that is a kind of a structural problem when you are watching this. And it can, and sometimes you could say that I'm nitpicking, but a pacing of a show could be a make it or break it. If people need to wait halfway through the episode, even if they're short, to get to the main point of it, that's a problem.
That's fair. I I'm a little bit more inclined to disagree with you, at least for like episode
Hey, that's fair.
five. Now,
Mhm.
if you had said this about episode four, right, where Cherub, that's the one where you have like the
Mhm.
people from the cherubs from heaven versus
Yeah,
our main characters from hell.
that one.
It's an interesting
That's another one
idea,
that's
but like that's an episode where I was kind of where yeah, I was kind of like, this is cool, this is fun, there's nothing bad here. I'm just not as entertained by this because it's very much focused on the comedy, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's all I'm laughing at it quite a bit of it. It's just I'm not as into it as the moments I've seen from previous episodes and then what comes after that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, as someone who really enjoyed episode 4, I will say that, yeah,
But
at some point, the antics just kind of wore their welcome.
I do get you though when you say that. Hey, it's I wouldn't say corporate eye. I would say you need someone who can stand back and say, all right, we need to cut this, right? Like, because it can be hard to, especially if you're working on something like this and you're doing it
Yeah, and
in the way that they're
especially,
doing it
again,
without that kind of
since,
backing, right? It can be
mhm,
hard
like
to sit back and say, all right, we need to cut this because again, right, like we talked about this with Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, things we've recently covered. This show is
mhm,
also a show that is packed full with stuff that blink and you miss it, right? There's a ton of stuff going on in the background that if you don't pause it to look at it and see what's going on, or rewatch it multiple times, you'll miss these things. Just like with Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse and other things that exist, right? So it can be hard to like, oh, but we have this really cool and funny background thing going on, and it can be hard to cut a scene because you still want to use that stuff in the background, right?
and especially with something like this where every penny counts.
This is also true.
Mhm. So again, I want to say that I understand where some of the problems are coming from, but again, considering season two is getting better and this show is being talked about to the same point as something that a big media company would put out, like Netflix or Nickelodeon or some other thing. If I'm going to bring those problems up with those shows, I'm gonna bring it up here. And it's not big. And again, I'm only saying those things because I think the show is fun, the
Hmm.
show is great, but the people, you can tell that this is also a learning experience for the crew behind it.
Well, yeah, as always, right? It's the same for Ruby as well. Like you can, I firmly have, I've always said, and I will firmly stand by this. You can clearly see from volume to volume, right, for Ruby, how the crew behind it has grown and learned, and what they started with, and where they're at now, and just how far they've come, right?
Mhm. That being said, I'm glad that the creators of Helluva Boss said that the show that they are currently mapping for 4 seasons, and they won't drag this out like Ruby because Ruby kind of started suffering for it.
I'm gonna fucking fight you if you say one more bad thing about Ruby. All right,
Season 7 and 8
we're
sucked.
good. You're
Come
wrong.
at me.
You don't need to worry
Okay,
about
but
sending hate mail to this guy. I'll murder him for you later.
yeah, yeah, whatever.
No, but like,
You haven't done it in how long? I am not worried. Okay.
I I always have, like, you know, talking about it a little bit, getting a little bit off topic. I always have a soft spot for web series, right?
Yeah,
I
same.
know there's, people who will watch this show and they don't remember this, and they probably will never know this was a thing because they're too young. Machinima, like, I grew up with stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
Newgrounds,
Machinima.
Machinima, like all of that
Mhm.
stuff, like seeing the web series stuff back in the day. I grew up with a lot of that, and there's still things like that that exist now, but it feels like ever since Machinima died, right, and it took so much of that community and that history with it, it feels like there's a lot less of that happening, in my opinion.
I'll tell you what, because there's also this thing where, like, when you think of YouTubers or web shows and stuff like that, like what most people are coming to really think of is like either stuff like, let's say, Smart, where it's a bunch of sketches,
Mm.
or
Like College
stuff
Humor,
like,
stuff like that.
yeah, or also like Angry Video Game No, Nostalgia Critic, in enter Kadikarus, enter online personality here, which is basically a review show which can involve sketches, but it's not a show. It's a review show, but it's not. And some people do throw plots in there, like Nostalgia Critic is now is infamous for the skits that it puts, in the reviews, and you have stuff like Linkara, who has plot lines and arcs and all that shit. So, but there isn't really something besides Helluva Boss, really, that's just a straight up show. That's just a cartoon that you can watch on YouTube.
Right.
There's not this
We
is
should be
so.
clear. There are things that exist, like Pokemon has put
Yeah.
out their online web series stuff, which is pretty good. Some of
But
that's
that's
really good. Like,
Pokemon.
yeah,
No,
but
but,
like, but that, yeah,
that's
you're right.
Pokemon. That's a
That's
pre-established franchise.
Yeah, that's Pokemon, that's Nintendo, that's a big name backing them, right? Like the only place I would say that has been doing stuff a little bit before Warner and then after Warner as well to a degree would be Rooster Teeth, where you had Ruby, you had Genlock, but I
Yeah.
Genlock's a little bit. I don't know if I'd count that because I had some big names backing it as well. But like Nomad of Nowhere or Camp, right? Like that was from Rooster Teeth. Those were other
Yeah, and
cartoons that you
even
could watch
those.
on YouTube, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and even those now, even those things are now also became so much bigger
Well,
than just
no,
like.
Camp and Nomad of Nowhere died. Unfortunately, they never got to finish
Yeah, no,
anything.
but I mean just Rooster
But
Teeth in
Ruby, right?
general.
Ruby, right? That became. I feel like I don't know if I would qualify that as a web series anymore, right? Considering
Yeah,
where it's
like
at now and what it's doing.
like it could. I guess we could count it, but again, this is
At the very
considering
least, it
Rooster Teeth
started off as
came.
one.
Again, just because I think Ruby might have started out as a web series, and you can argue it still is, but nowadays it got a crossover with the Justice League. Like
It
this is
also
a
got
French.
like a completely separate spin-off anime.
Yeah, like this like Ruby is a franchise now. Ruby is something that's beyond, that's now beyond if it started as a web series or not. And also that Rooster Teeth built their name on essentially, as far as I remember, they kind of Rooster Teeth kind of got famous for Red versus Blue
Yeah,
before it started doing
there
Ruby. Red
which
versus
was
Blue was
also like,
Halo.
yeah, that was like, talking about machinima, right? That was one of the big machinimas back in the day.
Hmm. Yeah, so it is nice to just see something that's just a show with a plot and characters, and it's on YouTube. You don't need to like turn on the TV for it. You don't need to look it up in any in any in any streaming service or some shit. You are just turning on YouTube and it's there legal to watch.
Hmm.
And I also enjoy that, as of now, they don't necessarily need to order to worry about executive meddling or getting ratings and stuff. They can just do whatever the fuck they want, and people enjoy it. I enjoy it as well, even if I'm critical at some aspects. Yeah, I still think it's a great show. It's nice to have something like this out there.
No, like, yeah, I
And
completely agree. Like, again, like I said, right, it holds a special place in my heart because it's just creatives getting to do a creative thing and it working out very well, right? It's nice
yeah.
to see that again. And like, yeah, it's been there and it still is there to a degree, but like I said, it feels like after machinima went downhill and everything, and like many other web series stuff started getting picked up, and like, oh, we're very locked into this little new streaming service that this person is doing, or like this new service that this company is doing, that also have all died. Surprisingly
Hmm.
enough, it's nice
Yeah,
to
and it's
just
also like
have
that
this thing.
sometimes you have those things and you are also not necessarily sure when like you mentioned machinima. There was a point when everyone wanted to be a part of machinima.
I
Where
mean,
is
hell,
that?
some of the biggest names, right, got their start with that. Like, I look at,
Mhm.
Critical Role, Matthew Mercer. Like, if I'm not mistaken, he's talked a little bit about this in
And
the past, but he started with Machinima, right?
yeah, and also like he didn't start with it, but my favorite YouTuber, some call me Johnny, he was partnered with them for a while as well.
They were big. And don't get me wrong, right? Like, I'm not going to look back at Machinima with rose tinted goggles and say that all of it was good. A lot of that, a lot of stuff that was released through them, or kind of taking the idea of, that web series, easily done stuff, was it wasn't great. Some of it was really bad. There were some diamonds in the rough, and then there was a small amount of it that was genuinely good stuff, like Red versus Blue, for instance, right? But a lot of it was just bleh. Let's be
Yeah,
honest, it wasn't
yeah,
good.
like obviously, and obviously
But I mean,
some stuff just lose their ground after a while.
it's
Like
worth noting though,
how much
to a
of it
degree,
grew.
that like a lot of that bad stuff was just some, a group of random kids getting together and like, let's make a thing, and they made a thing and they put it out there, and the rest of us stupid fucks watching, it's like, it was all right, you
Yeah,
know.
like again, it's just one of those things you can never know what's gonna catch on, right? Like
It's
when you think about it, you had two kids making a parody of Daredevil in their basement just as a joke, and now that and over almost 40 years later, that joke they made is now like a multi-billion-dollar franchise. I'm talking about the Ninja Turtles, for the record. So you can never know how the one thing you accidentally want to start is just gonna catch on for something. And I'm glad that Helluva Boss caught on
yeah.
as well as it did without any backing from anything. It was just honestly word of mouth. That's the reason we still have it today.
Yeah, no, I like word of mouth, and just like, a decent backing from just fans, right? Just people who wanted to see some creatives do a creative
People who
thing, and they
believed in
got it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like and again, we can talk about this for an entire hour. The point, but the point of the matter is, Hello Bus is doing is something that's rare to see, and I am glad that it's here, and I'm gonna watch it for as long as it's here, and we're gonna keep talking about it the more seasons they release.
Yeah. I mean, getting back into it, right? Like, I love like season 6 and season 7, episode 6 and episode 7 of season 1. Really sold me on this show personally, right?
Mhm.
And
Because this is there's the scene when with Blitz and Moxie when they are tied up, and it's like, you remember what you told me, which I think is actually an interesting metaphor for the entire show. Like, you remember what you told me the day we met, and it's like, no, I don't. I tell you a lot of things, and I said, I remember. You said, good job, kid. I hope to work with you. Even though Moxie felt bad about his tryout to get into the team, the fact that Blitz kind of saw him, he kind of did see something in him and decided to hire him regardless of that. And the fact that they're still in the business together, they still count on each other, they still work together. That's a really good piece of television. That's really good. And I honestly, I think this scene is the point where the show does get better, because we get a lot of scenes like this in the
well,
future
yeah, like
episodes.
that same episode, right? You also get like, Blitz, and you see a bit more into his personality and just
Mm-hmm.
how he thinks of himself, right? And then on top of that, you even get Stolas coming in to save the day, and you get to see just how scary he can actually be, right? Just how,
Yeah.
competent he is as a person. And it's really great to
Mm-hmm.
see. And then you go into episode 7 and you get, Moxie and Millie and their whole thing. You get some great singing from the person who plays Osmodeus, I believe is. What am
I
I saying?
want to I want to say that's Alex Brightman. No, actually,
No,
that's not
it's
his.
James Monroe.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, James Monroe. Yeah,
yeah.
I think he's a stage actor. Yes, he's a stage actor, and he's done like some singing for different stage plays. Yeah, very
Yep.
good, very well done, very
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable. But yeah, like you get that, and you get like the whole scene of Blitz and like Stolas, like being a little bit embarrassed to be with Blitz for a second, and Blitz like not liking that, and then you go into like them going home and Blitz dropping Stolas off, and Stolas like, hey, we don't have to do our normal thing, and Blitz like, no, we know what this is between us. Don't try to pretend like it's something
Yeah,
more.
that
It's so
that was
good.
also a really good scene, because they established that they are not necessarily dating. They are friends with benefit.
Yeah,
They established this really clearly, and this
but you
also
can
kind of gives
see
this.
very clearly within the animation that both of them want something more than that, right?
Yeah, and but at the same time, they might also be just afraid of, but that, what, if we're making it more, then what's gonna happen? How is this going to change things? And they are afraid of that.
Yeah, and it's
So,
really good. You just want to hug them both.
I'll hug them both, then let them get into bed, and I'll be leaving shortly after.
Listen, Stolas needs a hug. Poor
Mhm.
dude. But like, and also, right, you go and then you get to see into Blitz's apartment, right? And then you notice, right, if you start pausing, again, this blink and you miss it sort of thing, that every picture that has him in it with Moxie, Millie, Luna, all of them have his face crossed out, right? Like Blitz's face
Mhm.
crossed out. It's like,
Yeah.
shit, this is well done stuff. Like, this is the kind of
Yeah, like
storytelling
it's
you
hardly.
want from like major companies that aren't doing that shit, right?
Yeah, you see, this is what I mean with, I'm glad that this is out there, because when is the last? Maybe it isn't something, and we just don't know. But when is the last time you saw this in something like that Netflix would fund, or Amazon, or Nick, or any other network?
It's rare that you get to see it, right? It's rare. I think they do
Mhm.
exist, but it's rare that you see stuff like that. That kind of
But
visual
and
storytelling.
even if it is, then I don't think it might not have caught on as well as this did.
I honestly think like the biggest visual storytelling thing I've seen recently would be Across the Spider Verse and Into the Spider Verse,
Yeah.
right? Or like
Hmm.
the recent Puss in Boots movie where there's more visual storytelling that's going on there, right?
Yeah. And
And it's
honestly,
like,
it's
man, we need more
it's
of
like
that.
holy
It's like
shit, we have this
this is so
tool called
good.
animation. Like we have this tool called animation. We can do shit with it. So why won't we?
I mean, it just like the whole idea of visual storytelling, right? It's such a good thing, and it's like, why don't we use this more? Why don't more people take advantage of this? It works really well. I look back at Roger Rabbit, the entire scene of like his partner's desk, man. That is visual storytelling to
Yeah, like
perfection, and it's like, why don't we do this more?
yeah,
It's so
because
good.
we again some stuff does do
It
that,
does,
but it's
yes,
like
yeah.
it's not. But it's one of those things that it's sadly dying a bit, and it is kind of sad. But and also because I think. Uh, I'm not to say that you can't enjoy this movie because it is fun in its own way, but look at the Mario movie. Talk about a movie that does a lot with its animation. Talk about a movie that just bangs everything it has at you, but all the little details with the animation don't really forward anything in the story.
It's
It's
like
just reference.
it's there, but there's no meat to it, right? It's like, man, that
There
was
you go.
great, that was good, but there's no meat to it. There's nothing to really latch onto and really read into, right? And that's like the biggest thing when it comes to small little details like that you can throw into animation or even live action, but especially animation, where you see these things happening. Like, take for instance, I just mentioned it, right? Like all of the photos you have on the apartment wall in Blitz's apartment, and he has his face crossed out in all of them that he's
Yeah.
in, right? Like that, there's meat there. It gives you an interesting look into his personality and his mindset, right? And it's not just
Yes.
there for like some visual gag or something like that. This show does have that, but that's not the entire point of it, right? And it's like that's what you need from it. That's the whole point of visual storytelling. It's there it's there to add meat to it. It's there to give you more to chew on and something to really dive into and look at. And
Mhm.
the Mario movie, while there's, like you said, a ton of stuff going on and being thrown at you and happening, that's some of it's pretty good and pretty enjoyable. There's no meat to it, as I said. It doesn't add anything to the characters or to the story. It just, this is a thing, it's a reference, or it's just a funny thing that happens, and it's like,
Yeah, like
it was
let's
good,
take
it was enjoyable, but that's where you leave it at.
like if I may compare actually, because so we have this scene in Helluva Boss where Blitz goes home and you see all the pictures with him in it. He's crossed out.
Mm-hmm.
That can tell you a lot about, and also the fact that it happens after a night which didn't go well for him at all. Right? This is like after you know he was captured. He had to be saved by his friends with benefits. You can tell he wants something more with that friends and benefits, and the friends with benefits wasn't too. But they just don't think they can do it, and they are sad but also content with it. And then he just goes home, and you see this. Now let's bring the Mario movie in for a second, because we after spoilers for the Mario movie, by the way, if you haven't seen it, which you probably did because it made $1 billion, so whatever.
Woo.
uh, after Mario and Luigi come back from their first client, which they totally messed it up, and the family is making, and the family is making, and they tell Mario like, "Oh, not only are you failing, but you are also dragging down your brother with you." And Mario goes to his room and he plays Kid Icarus. Now, as this, you see, this could tell you something about a person. This is how he escapes from this judgmental family. This is how he handles this. This is his way of coping. But you're not really thinking about it, because you're thinking about the fact he's playing Kid Icarus, which is also a Nintendo game. and they are not really staying on it enough for you to actually feel something.
Mm.
Get the comparison?
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
said
do.
my.
No, no, like you're right. I agree with you. I don't disagree or anything. You're fine. It's just it's nice to see it, right? It's more enjoyable. It's more feeling like, well, like we said, right? Like the Mario movie is really great junk food. It's really enjoyable. It's really fun. But you don't walk out from the Mario movie filled, right? You walk away from, especially like episode 7 of Helluva Boss and season 2 more so in my opinion so far. You walk away filled. You walk away feeling like, yeah, I got a lot from that, right? There's a lot that I can stop and take in from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enjoyable
Agreed.
to see that, like we said, it's enjoyable to see that it came from a place that wasn't, and that there was just creatives doing a creative thing with the backing of people who were, willing to support that endeavor, right? And that's it. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no company that came in and said, here's a boatload of fucking money that you can rely on if things go south, and have at it, and but here's the things we want you to do, right? There's none of that. It's just they did a thing and it has worked out well, and it's nice to see that it exists. And I hope, looking at some other stuff that has recently come out, like seeing the Lackadaisy pilot, right? I'm so glad that that exists, because there's another thing that looks like, hey, the creatives just doing a creative thing and making something that's really well received. I hope they get to go further with that, right? Because that's really cool. I love the idea of that. And I'm glad that we're starting to see a little bit more of a resurgence of that, because nowadays, right, from where we came back to from where we came from machinima, where like, hey, here's some video game characters, like, and we kind of move them using, like, the video game controls to make it look like they're talking, looking back at
Yeah.
early Red versus Blue
And
with,
there are also launch, and if you've seen some Smash Brothers machinimas that are like that are the
yes,
same.
yes, right, like it
Smash
was
King for the win.
it was fun back in the day, but it's nice to see that with new software and the progression of technology, that you can do so much more, looking at Helva
Oh,
Boss, Lackadaisy, and Ruby, right? Like it's so much easier for anyone to do so much more now, right? And it's
yes,
been kind of
definitely.
sad that we've not seen as much of it, and maybe it's just I'm not looking in the right places as much anymore, right? It could be that, but it feels to me like a lot of that has died off. Ooh, hit the mic, I apologize. It feels to me like a lot of that has died off since, right? And it's nice to potentially see that we might be getting a bit more of a resurgence of that. And it's like, I'm interested in this. I'm glad this exists, and I hope it continues to do well, because it deserves it.
Amen. Hmm. So so with all that being said, is there anything there is something I want to point out, and that's that another thing, because the final episode does kind of talk, focus on it. Moxie and Millie's relationship, I
Mm-hmm.
think, is like some of the best way I've seen a married couple being written in any show,
Agreed.
because you can tell, like you can tell they go for the entire vibe of, Moxie is kind of, the nerdy guy, and Millie's the tough girl that carries him around. But for one, you can tell that both of them really love each other and that they're not stuck with each other. And
Mm,
you can also see that, while Millie is like the strong of the two, uh, Moxie has his own set of skills which comes into play and is being useful in other ways. And they just have a great chemistry with each other.
no,
I just really love those characters.
I love the line of, when they go to the festival, and Stryker catches them both and throws them in the cellar, right? And Millie tells him,
Yeah.
like, do the thing you're good at doing. He's like, what do you mean? Like, like I'm not good with my hands or anything like that. And she just looks at him like,
And
come
like,
on.
just no, just because she says that he's not. It doesn't matter that he's not good with his hands, because she meant that in the
Yeah, no,
physical
no,
violence thing. And he's like, I'm not good with my hands, and she gives him that look of
yeah.
really.
But I also love even more. Like I love the line after that where he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good with guns. I should have done this in the first place, right?" And she's like, "I love you, honey, but fuck
Yeah,
me."
yeah.
It's so great, and it's like it's just such an adorable relationship because like, hey, these two people really do love and care for one another and really do support one another. It's nice to see that from like a marriage.
Yeah. It's nice to see a married couple that's not like a stereotypical of, oh, once you get married, life goes to shit. Or like, oh, we are gay, the conflict is that they're gonna get divorced or, something. No, they're just, they're a married couple who actually loves each other. Those are nice too.
Yeah, it's nice to
Those
see.
happen. Mhm. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I think we covered everything.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think.
there's plenty of stuff we've not covered that, like, again, go and watch it. There's tons of stuff you can pull from this and little small gags that happen in the background that we don't need to mention here because go watch it. You'll enjoy it. It's fun, it's enjoyable. And season two
Yeah.
is currently still releasing. So you have quite a
Mhm.
bit to enjoy if you've not seen it somehow.
Definitely. Definitely.
And also go
So
watch
I
Has Been
guess we'll
Hotel.
see you. Sorry, but again, the next time we'll see you in the Helluva Boss universe, it will be whenever season 2 finishes. And I can't wait, honestly. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see
Mm-hmm.
what more this has in store.
Agreed.
So this was it for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed it. What are your thoughts about Helluva Boss season 1? Are you watching season 2 currently? And are you excited for what's to come? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next episode. Take care.
Bye bye.